So the British intelligence services have let it be known to selected publications that the iron fist, the long arm of President Vladimir Putin did reach the back door of the British Prime Minister Keir Starmer. MI5 probes Putin link to Starmer arson blitz. I have to laugh because I have to really watch that I actually spell arson properly in my many tweets on the subject. So we're asked to believe, well, first of all, as a matter of process, the mass media in Britain completely ignored this story. They played it down to a minor paragraph on the inside pages. And indeed, some of them told me that my hype over the matter was risking prejudicing a fair trial for the three accused. Well, look at that front page. As a matter of process, I don't see how this trial can now proceed. How can these three Ukrainian male models, massage artists, and aspiring actors possibly get a fair trial before a jury in Britain when the British intelligence services have just told the whole country that it was a Russian sabotage operation? Secondly, still on process, if it was a Russian state operation, then it was terrorism, not arson with a risk to life. It was terrorism, in which case, why haven't they been charged with terrorism? If they are alleged terrorists, then the matter should be dealt with at the appropriate level of the law. But maybe this is all just an afterthought. In the aftermath of not one single member of Parliament on Wednesday at Prime Minister's Questions having the guts to ask the obvious question, which I can tell you as someone who was in the British Parliament from the 1980s until last year, at any other time this question would have been asked. Some renegade MP, a Tory maybe, would have been told by the whips to just stand up and all innocent like, Uriah Heep like, ask the Prime Minister if he had ever met or had any contact with any or all of the three Ukrainian male model massage artists who were accused of arsoning around in his properties, two of them, and a motor car that he previously asked. Inexplicably, not one single member of Parliament raised that question. If it had been raised, this matter could have been, if you'll forgive the pun, put to bed. The Prime Minister could have said, I have no intention of prejudicing this trial, but I confirm that I have never met and never had any contact with any of these three people accused of the arson attacks on my former properties. Well, in one case, still properties, lived in by his sister-in-law, but still his property. Now, the question I asked right at the beginning, how did three Ukrainian male models, massage artists and aspiring actors, £20 an hour, with the first hour for free, how did they know the former addresses and the registration number of the former motor vehicle of the British Prime Minister? This is a quite extraordinary thing. As I said on Wednesday in our record show, 2.5 million views so far. If this Sunday show keeps up, it will be the very first ever 5 million audience mother of all talk shows. But as I said on Wednesday, if the members of Parliament won't rise to the occasion and ask the obvious question, to which he could have answered, no, I have never heard of them, never met them, then we would at least know, because the Prime Minister wouldn't lie, would he? Then we'd at least know that we were dealing with a probable foreign-inspired, executed terrorist attack on the British Prime Minister, which would be an attack on the United Kingdom itself, and therefore very much more serious, deserving of the most serious charges. But nobody asked, and answer, therefore, he gave none. But looking at the allegation that is being made on the front pages of the British newspapers today, let's just say, if this is true, then John le Carre himself could not have written it. Russia, which we're told is a homophobic republic, recruited 3 male models, massage artists, and aspiring actors who are Ukrainian citizens. In one case, dual citizen of both Romania and Ukraine. And that those 3 male models allegedly attacked Starmer's property precisely to get this kind of story running and running. If it was Putin, it's a spectacularly successful act of espionage. It's a fantastically successful use of, for money or ideology, who knows, Ukrainian citizens to allegedly commit an attack which is going to dominate the summer in Britain. Because this case goes to court in June. And when it goes to court, the accused will have to say something. And what are they going to say? That Vladimir Putin made me do it? The dog ate my homework? Vladimir Putin gave me however many rubles to do it? And though patriotic Ukrainian citizens, we decided to go along with it. Or are they going to say something else? Something deeply more personal. And if they do, then Keir Starmer's balls are on the slate. He will not survive the rest of this year as Prime Minister. That's my confident prediction. If it was the Russians, what done it? It was dazzlingly successful as a maneuver, and makes you wonder why a shrink-wrapped bottle of Novichok perfume has not yet been found in a charity bin nearby. My own views on this will be obvious. I think if you believe the Russians done this, then I've got a bridge in London I could sell you going cheap, cheap, cheap. I believe that it's much more likely to be another foreign actor, if terrorist attack it was, and much more likely, even more still, to be connected to some personal business. But I'm unable to stand any of that up. I'm anxiously waiting the trial or the first appearance in court in June, as you are. But the fact that Putin is on the British mind to the incredible extent that the Prime Minister appears to go to bed at night dreaming of Vladimir Putin is a measure not of strength but of weakness, a measure of desperation. It's quite clear from the barrage that multiple Ukrainian cities faced last night, from a bewildering array of armaments, that air defense no longer exists in Ukraine, despite the scores of billions of pounds, dollars, and euros that have been spent on the aforementioned air defense. The Russians are able to strike Ukraine at will. The fact that they don't want to cause massive damage to civilian areas, still less to civilian people, is obvious. If it wasn't the case, then Kiev would have looked like Gaza right from the very beginning of this conflict. But I don't think the patience of the Russians can be guaranteed. And when I saw that an attempt to assassinate President Putin had been made this afternoon, I thought it's going to be a terrible night tonight in Ukraine. And there is nothing and nobody going to stop it. Not Keir Starmer, his mind's on other things. Not Emmanuel Macron, he's all mouth and no trousers. He and the German Prime Minister, the Chancellor of Germany, have no arms left. Don't believe me, they have said so. They have told the world and Ukraine that they can spare no more weapons for Ukraine without leaving their own armory dangerously denuded. So nobody's going to stop what Russia does next. And what Russia says it's going to do next is draconian indeed. The day will come, if it hasn't already, that they will beg for the terms that the Russians initialed in the Istanbul Agreement just a month or 2 months after the beginning of this phase of the conflict. Now, Russia's not going to just take all of the oblasts that it currently holds and who've held referenda and voted to return to Mother Russia, but is going to, on the back of the failed Kursk insurrection, the Kursk attack, the invasion and the temporary occupation of the Russian area of Kursk, they have decided that they intend to make a buffer zone right around the state of Ukraine, all of the east and south of it in any case. And so places like Odessa, places like Kharkov are going to be Russian occupied territory. They may not be absorbed into the Russian Federation, but they will be Russian occupied territory with the status of buffer zone so that they cannot ever again be used to infiltrate into the territory of Russia. So the outcome of this war is getting worse and worse and worse for what remains of Ukraine. And therefore, somebody somewhere has to tell Zelensky that it's time for him to go. And that somebody is quite likely very close to him right at this minute. That somebody is likely to be one of his own inner circle, one of his own military top brass, who are bound to be saying, the only way is down. The only way is more and more territory lost. The only way is more landlocking, so that we will have no access to the Black Sea at all. And that means that what's left of Ukraine will be little more than a Kosovo, UN Western occupied satrapy with no meaningful independent life of any kind, and used only as a knife in the side of an adversary. In the case of Kosovo, the adversary being Serbia, which is the rightful owner of that property, and in this case, a knife in the side of the Russian Federation, but not much of a knife at that. So, is the war coming to an end in the Ukraine? I believe so. I believe that it definitely will have ended by the end of this year. I believe that the course of the war has proved so disastrous that the European allies, as well as long ago now, the American ally, have decided to abandon ship. And abandoning ship means abandoning Zelensky. Donald Trump, in his famous 2-hour phone call with President Putin, is quite likely to have given a green light to all of this. It's hard to believe that the 2-hour phone call did not touch upon what Russia intends to do next. And we now know what it is they intend to do next. Now, are the Americans evacuating the battlefield in Ukraine only to engage in one elsewhere? Is a subject to which I now turn. I'm going to be bold and tell you that if Israel attacks the nuclear power plants of Iran, Iran will put an end to the existence of the state of Israel. They don't have nuclear weapons, but they have ballistic superpower that the air defenses of Israel simply cannot cope with. Already, 20% of the people of Israel have left the country. And these are the most portable of Israeli citizens, with skill sets and with capital and with know-how that are easily sellable elsewhere in the Western world on the employment market. The employment situation inside Israel is as bad as the economic situation, which is now a basket case. Tourism is zero. Hardly anyone wants to go for a holiday to a war zone. And they are now desperately hoping for a change of heart in Washington, hoping not for more missiles, but for more money, because they simply cannot afford to continue this level of conflict for this long when they haven't even managed to subjugate the tiny Gaza Strip. The idea of them flying thousands of kilometers to launch an attack which would be hotly contested on the day on the nuclear industry of Iran, a perfectly legal nuclear industry, one that was operating perfectly legally according to the IAEA, the International Atomic Energy Agency, which polices these matters, during the period of the former nuclear deal with the big powers. There was nothing wrong with what Iran was doing with its nuclear power plants. Therefore, the idea that they should now stop enriching uranium when they are perfectly legally entitled to enrich uranium, and the idea that they're going to sit back and do nothing if Israel attacks those perfectly legal nuclear power installations is for the birds. The truth is, Iran will obliterate Israel if it launches this attack. Which begs the obvious question. Is this all a bluff from Netanyahu? Or does he know that the United States would enter a full-scale war with Iran on Israel's behalf? I personally believe all the signs are that America would not do so. Not just because it would be extremely costly militarily to American forces in the region. 50,000 American soldiers are sitting there out in various fields of the Persian Gulf region, and they would all be within easy shooting distance, like shooting fish in a barrel, of the Iranian response. Not only because the Straits of Hormuz would instantly close, causing an economic crisis everywhere in the world, but in particular in the Western European part of the world. Not only because if the Straits of Hormuz were blocked and economic activity was reduced to zero, and the price of petrol, of gas at your filling station would make your eyes water just before you had to turn away because you couldn't afford to buy any, but because the closest allies of the United States would all be left a smoking ruin. That is, the allies that Donald Trump left just a week or so ago, literally dripping with gold and diamonds and pearls and elephants and dancing girls. Who knows what else? If all these countries' economies are completely destroyed in the fighting, as I predict they instantly would be, if the property market of Dubai vanishes overnight into a smoking hellhole, then I don't think that American influence in the Arab world, in the Gulf region, would survive any longer than the smoking ruins. So I don't believe myself that Donald Trump will enter a war for Israel against the Islamic Republic of Iran. Therefore, I don't believe that Israel will do so either. Which means it's all a bluff to assist America in the nuclear talks. Now, we'll hear from the Oracle, Professor Said Mohammed Marandi, in just a few minutes on where those negotiations stand. It seems to me more likely that a deal will be reached, and that deal will at least calm the danger of World War III in the Persian Gulf. And if the danger of World War III is calming in the Ukraine, as I believe that it is, then that's two big reasons to be cheerful. Lastly, the situation in Gaza continues to become a holocaust on your telephone. Imagine if you had been able to watch on your telephone, more or less live, the pictures from Auschwitz, from Treblinka, from Birkenau, from the death camps, the extermination camps, erected by the Nazis and their allies in Poland and in Western Ukraine and elsewhere. Imagine if you had been able to watch the children going in to the gas chambers. Well, you are able to watch its modern equivalent, and hundreds of millions are doing so daily. I can tell from my own social media. that hundreds of millions are watching daily scenes that would not have been worsened in the death camps of Auschwitz, Treblinka, and the others in the Holocaust in the Second World War. This is Babi Yar on television. We can see the people in the pits being mass murdered, children maimed, mutilated, beheaded, women, pregnant women. I just watched a fetus that was found outside its mother on the ground next to her dead body. This is a horror show beyond any comparison with anything that we have been able to watch before. This is Genghis Khan and the Mongol hordes on steroids, slaughtering at will the most vulnerable, the most innocent people. And it's supported by the great majority of Israeli citizens. Well over 80% of Israeli citizens support the total extermination or permanent ethnic cleansing from their own land on the Gaza Strip. And I haven't seen a poll, but I'd be surprised if there were not similar numbers for doing the same next in the West Bank. And this is leading to a great many consequences, implications. It's reverberating throughout society, everywhere. More and more desperate efforts are having to be made by the Hasbara and by the clique of pro-Israel supporters that have so much influence in the political class and in the media class in Western countries. People are being struck down off Twitter. They're being cancelled from stage, or they're being charged with terror offences for holding up a flag on a stage. Talk about crushing a butterfly on a wheel. We'll be discussing all of this over the course of the next 1 hour and 35 minutes. Stay tuned. It's the mother of all talk shows.